Hi everyone, it's Nicole Spohr and welcome back to my channel. Today I have some mermaids, sharks, and treasure map cards to share with you using my monthly hero add-ons from the June 2022 release. This is an awesome release and I used tons of products from the release for my cards today. We're going to be creating a mermaid themed underwater card, a shark card, and then a treasure map card. I'm going to start with creating our mermaid background. We're going to do all of our backgrounds first, color all of our images, and then put all three cards together. So starting with our first background, the dark sea bold print background, I'm going to ink together Salvaged Patina, Mermaid Lagoon, and Prize Ribbon Distress Oxide inks on my background stamp that I've already placed in my MISTI. I've put my 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch panel of smooth white cardstock here in my MISTI as well. I will be trimming this background down a little bit later, but I like to start with the full size panel. I'm going to use an ink blending brush to kind of blend those three colors together, spritz the whole panel with water from a mini mister so I get a nice even spray, and then I'm going to simply close my MISTI lid and press this really well and even kind of let it sit for a minute. When I'm using water, I like to kind of let that water absorb into the cardstock. I'm going to lift it up, look and see where maybe I still need to press a little bit more, and then press that down again. Now, the background looks pretty blotchy at this point. I am going to not re-ink the stamp, but instead just reactivate the ink left on the stamp and press this down again. Just kind of helping to fill in any of those areas that maybe are missing a little bit of ink. I noticed that this particular MISTI, it's kind of new, doesn't ink so good up at the top. I don't know what the deal is. And then I noticed another little area I missed, so I pressed that. Now I'm going to set this aside to dry for a bit. We are going to do a little bit more to this, but I want the background to completely air dry, so I will take it out. I guess I did spritz it again. You can do this as many times as you want to. I would caution to be a little careful. You can oversaturate it, and if you do oversaturate it, it could kind of get all wonky. I know this because my first couple attempts, I messed up a little bit. So there's my background. It is beautiful. I love all of the detail and texture, and I'm going to let that dry while I take our next bold print. And this is the Antique Hero Map bold print. I love this background. The backgrounds this month are amazing. I think I've mentioned this many times in my Hero Arts videos that Hero Arts has some of the best background stamps out there. So I am going to ink up the Antique Hero map. I call it a treasure map, but it's called Antique Hero Map with the Ground Espresso Distress Oxide ink. I again placed this in my MISTI. I stamped it on a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch panel of smooth white cardstock to get that detail. Then I want this to look like a treasure map. Using a combination of gathered twigs and ground espresso, we are going to ink up our map. And I'm immediately just going to go in, and some of the ground espresso areas may kind of wick out. Wick isn't exactly the right word I want to use, but they're going to blend out as you're blending over them, but that's okay. I'm going for kind of a weathered old treasure map looking background here. And I am simply going to take the gathered twigs and go all the way around my panel, darker around the edges, lighter in the center, but I want to still pull all of that color in. Then we're going to go back to ground espresso, even though that's the color we used to stamp the detail, and we're going to go around the edges, and we're going to start pulling darker color, blending it into the lighter color. And kind of the same thing as before, around the edges, and then gradually bringing the color into the center of the panel. You're not going to lose the detail. It's just going to give it that really fantastic kind of aged map look. Once I have that all done, I am going to spritz the background with a little water from the mini mister. I would normally use my distress sprayer here, but my distress sprayer broke, so I have to buy a new one. And so I am just going to use my mini mister, which worked great. You can also use like a paintbrush and just kind of flick if you want a little bit more droplet and not so much of the spray. Mini mister isn't normally what I'd like to use here just because it does give more of a spray, but I did try to just kind of depress the sprayer part way, and I did get some great droplets. It worked. Use what you have. I'm going to do that a couple times, dab up the extra water, and then of course let this sit and completely air dry. So there's our backgrounds, and you can really see the underwater ocean one from our dark sea bold print has smoothed out quite a bit as the ink has dried. Next, we are going to take the Tide Stencil. I did spray this with Pixie Spray first. This is one of those stencils that I think is going to require some temporary adhesive or Pixie Spray on it so it doesn't move. And I even went so far as to not really use the normal brush technique over this stencil because it's so fine and detailed, and I'm pouncing my Distress Oxide colors over the stencil more than using the circular motion. We're using Cracked Pistachio, Lucky Clover, and we're even going to pull in a little Mermaid Lagoon or Prize Ribbon, either one, whatever's left kind of on our brush, and then I'll pull in a little bit more blue, which you'll see in a minute. I'm kind of doing a diagonal-ish stripe with my inks, just kind of getting a different color background. I really wanted all of my backgrounds to be completely different for my cards today. Oh, Prize Ribbon, not Mermaid Lagoon. And again, I'm going to pounce that color on, and it might look like it doesn't go super good, but I promise I love how this turns out. And now I'm going to kind of use my circular motion a little more. I think I'm safe. I was really nervous because I did not want my stencil to shift. Even with the Pixie Spray, I thought it might. And then I'm even going to go back with my green blending brush and make sure it's blended everywhere. I'm going to pull this up, and then I'm going to go in with my blending brushes, and we're going to ink over the top of this with whatever ink is left in our brushes. And that is going to give us this beautiful result. The white was way too harsh. I didn't feel like that was exactly what I was looking for an underwater scene card. So I definitely want to add this color over the top. I'm going to go in with blue and kind of go over those areas where I've already applied blue. And I love it. Again, we're going to spritz this with water from our little mini mister, adding some droplets and some faded oxidized areas. I'm going to clean up my mat with a little water. I just use whatever's in my mini mister. And then I want my background to completely dry. Now, because I went over my whole kind of greenish mint colored background with my blending brush, I decided I want to do the same thing for the dark sea bold print background. I think the white areas are what's throwing me off. So I'm going to ink up my blending brush with the Salvaged Patina first and kind of go over the whole area, which is adding color, especially to the white areas of the background. And I'm going to work my way all the way down the panel, and I already can tell that I like this a lot. Making sure that the background was completely air dried is super important, but this is going to really make this background spectacular. After I did that, I did go ahead and go back with my Prize Ribbon, and I'm going to add just a little bit more of that, especially down along the bottom, but I am going to pull that color up a bit as well. And this just makes it perfect. I love how it looks. I will spritz this with a little bit of water as to kind of give it that same oxidized look, since we're using Distress Oxide inks for all of our backgrounds today. And then set our background aside for a minute. So for some of the backgrounds, I do want to add a little bit more layering detail. So for the mint background and the blue background, we are going to take images from another add-on from this release. This time we are going to be using Mermaid COVE. This has some amazing like silhouetted images of a mermaid, a fish, a turtle, like coral, seaweed, and then some awesome fish images and bubbles. We're going to concentrate mostly on like the like coral, fish, and then I will be using mermaid, the mermaid and the individual fish as well. But for the blue background, we're going to do like the schools of fish. I'm stamping them with VersaFine Onyx Black ink to add more layers and detail to the background of the card. Our stamped and colored images are going to be sitting kind of up on top, and I want lots of detail going on. Now that lighter area up towards the top of the panel, I wanted it lighter and then it to gradually get darker so that it gives that representation of like the light, the sunlight hitting the top of the water and filtering down, and it just gradually gets darker the further down underwater you go. That was kind of my plan and goal for this particular design. I am going to stamp a few more fish so that there's at least like 3 little areas. All of the fish images are going off the side of the panel at some point in this. There we go. So just a little bit more there. And then I do want to grab my mint background, and we're going to do the same thing. I am not going to be stamping any additional images in the background on our antique map. It has quite a bit going on, and I really don't want to cover up anything else on the map. I want some of like the compass, and I want all of the like, you know, all the map features to still show when we add our elements and our sentiment on top. So for the mint background, I'm going to use this big kind of coral image, the individual fish, the mermaid, and then I did even add a school of fish, but I think I add that later. I'm going to plan out where I think everything is going to go. I want to make sure that I'm leaving room for my main image on my background. And then we'll start stamping. Now, originally I wanted to stamp this with the Lucky Clover ink, and you will see that I do stamp it with Lucky Clover, but it doesn't show up at all. So I will go ahead and stamp the black ink right over it, but I wanted to show this. Don't get discouraged. If you try something and it doesn't totally work, there's usually a fix, and that looks much better. Underwater, ocean-themed cards, like the cards I'm sharing today, are always some of my favorite to create. I have no idea why, but I love creating them. And then this is a really fun idea as far as creating a bunch of cards at once that are not all the same by any stretch of the imagination. But they all kind of feature some kinds of the same elements as far as Distress Oxide inks, some stamping, some ink blending, that kind of thing. If you're ever at a point where maybe it's kind of hard, you're not exactly sure where you want to go with your card creation process, pardon me, try creating a bunch of backgrounds and then building from there. In this case, I did have a general idea, but I decided to just dive in and create some amazing backgrounds. And from there, I was really able to kind of pick and choose different images from the other My Monthly Hero June add-on sets that I wanted to go for with these cards. And so the backgrounds really kind of helped me with the direction I wanted to go with the finished design. Okay. Next up, I'm going to take all of the images I pulled that I think I want to use for my cards, and I'm going to stamp them on a half sheet of smooth white cardstock using Hero Arts Intensified Black ink, and then we're going to color them all in. There is quite a bit of coloring today since we're doing 3 cards and there's quite a few images, but I wanted to keep that in the video and show you how I'm mix and matching different elements from stamp sets, these add-on stamp sets, to create my cards. So we are going to be using images from JAWSOME Sharks, Mermaid Wishes, and Message in a Bottle. The mermaid, starfish, and bubbles are from Mermaid Wishes. The Message in a Bottle, individual leaf and flower, which I don't know that I kept that or used that in the video because I added those 2 elements later. And then of course the ship are from Message in a Bottle. And then the surfboard, sharks, fish all come from JAWSOME Sharks. All of my cards today are not only going to feature all of the great detail on the front, I did stamp additional sentiments inside of each card, and I created matching envelopes, which I'll share once we get to that part of the video, kind of near the end. I did stamp 2 individual fish images. Originally, I thought I'd use the fish with the mermaid card, but I changed my mind and I think they fit with my shark card a little bit better. The mermaid and fish image I'm using is pretty big in size and scale, and so I kind of just flipped what I thought I was doing. I still was able to use absolutely everything, I think with the exception of one set of bubbles. I can't remember if it's the JAWSOME sharks or Mermaid Wishes. I think it's Mermaid Wishes that doesn't have a coordinating die for the bubbles, or if it did, I lost it. That maybe could have happened. So I did not use that image. I think I used whichever image die cut I used with the mermaid, and then I didn't use bubbles on the shark card. All of the Copic markers I'm using today are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube, as well as over on my blog for easy reference. I wanted my mermaid to really stand out. She is going to go on that minty green background, so I thought, let's go rainbow for her awesome mermaid fin there, all of the great details. I don't know if you can see yet, I will color them, but her ears are fins as well, which I thought was so cool. I am simply taking 2 shades per color and adding the color down her mermaid tail. I wasn't sure if I was going to love it. It was about the point of the green and aqua that I thought, yeah, this is going to be okay. I just really wasn't sure. I thought, I knew I wanted to try it, and at first I was like, oh, I don't know, but we got about here and I was like, yep, I love it. Now I am going to continue the rainbow theme down at the very end of her fin, but on the sides, those are going to be aqua, and you'll see some different solid, more solidish colors in a few areas as well. So pretty. So lots of colors, lots of Copic markers used today. The fish is going to be YR 31, 23, 24, and 27. Nice base of YR 31. We're going to pull some of that color out with YR 27. That's going to be our deepest, darkest color. That's kind of our detailing color. I love this image. Really super fun. Both of the mermaid images are really, really cute. So in the comments below, I would love to know what your favorite from the release is. I will be doing another video, if not here, on my Patreon, using some of the other Hero Arts add-ons from the release. The lighthouse and sailboat cover plate and looking glass pearl, I think, are the only 2 I didn't use in my video today, but I will be using. I absolutely adore everything from this release. After I've colored in my fish, I decided I wanted to give her kind of a reddish type of hair. I think I used E18, 17, 19, something like that. The exact colors will be listed below. And there you can kind of see the fins for her ears. We're going to add more rainbow for her rainbow fin. She definitely probably took the longest out of everything on my card to color today, simply because of all of the color changes, but worth it. So fun. And I think she, with all the rainbow and then the yellow of our fish, stand out fantastic against the mint background, which is what I was looking for. And I often do build my cards from the background up when I'm planning, because backgrounds can be very important to that central focal point image as far as making a cohesive design. So I'm always conscious of that, aware of that, and trying my best to find a way to make it all come together. I think we'll do a little bit more green here in the center just to make that rainbow work a little better. Little solid yellow for these two little fin things coming out here. And then here's our aquas. I did start with BG 11 and 13, which is what I'm using for aqua, but I'm going to pull in some B21 and 24 into the aqua, which I thought worked actually pretty well. I liked it. And then we're going to do a little purple for the fins for her ears. So pretty. And I reinforced the white highlights in her eyes with a white pen. We're going to use our YR 31 and 23 colors for the starfish. We're going to use all the same yellow colors for the small fish as well, which again, I originally had planned to use them with the mermaid card, but we're going to pop those on the shark card, and they provide a fantastic little bit of color. The starfish as well. The starfish is from the mermaid set, but we're going to use it on the shark card. I thought it looked really cute with the seaweed and surfboard. For our surfboard, we're going to use our 24 and 46 to color that in. I love how it has that big chunk taken out of it from the sharks. And then I did go back with R46 and I just kind of did some very light lines after I blended it to give the surfboard a little bit more texture. YR 21, 23, and 17 for the seaweed. And then I used some blues for my sharks, and I'm so glad I did. I actually love how they turn out. I think I usually use grays, cool grays or warm grays, which are great, but I think the blues are really awesome. I think they work fantastic. They work really good with our background. And so I was super, super excited about how that turned out. Definitely check out the color combination below if you like those colors for the sharks. I wasn't super sure. I did use the warm gray, I think 8, to color in the inside of the mouth so that the teeth would really pop. But as I got more color added and I blended it out and then added like some little dot detail with my darkest marker, I really, really loved them. So we're going to do that for the two sharks that we're using on the shark card. My first shark did take a little bit of effort to get the blending. Color in our second shark, nice base real quick. Our dark color, our mid-tone color. Now I mentioned our message in a bottle, which we will be coloring here in a minute. That's the only image I originally had slated for the treasure map. But as I got that card and started putting it together, I realized I felt like it needed a little something else to help ground it on the design. And so that's why I did pull out the individual little branch with leaves and the flower. I don't think I color those on camera, but I will list the colors down below. I didn't pull any new colors or anything like that, but I do think it really does help with the overall finished design. Something else about the message in a bottle set that I want to mention, I forgot to mention it when we were stamping it. There's two different bottles. There's different images you can place inside the bottles, lots of great sentiments. The sentiments will fit on the bottles as well if you want to, but the bottle is a separate image from what you want to place on it. So maybe you want to stamp your bottle on vellum, emboss it or whatever, and then you want to stamp, let's say the ship here. Let's say you want to stamp that on a separate piece of paper and color it and layer it back behind the vellum. You can, because there's individual dies for the ship, the little island with the palm trees, and then of course like the flowers and things. So there's a lot of different ways you can use these images. Now I did color over the entire bottle with some light blue colors. I should have probably done that before the red. I had to kind of help fix the red sails, because as I did that, they wanted to blend out. But I wanted the bottle to have some texture to it before I cover it with crystal lacquer. Now I will do that after this is die cut, once it's adhered to the card. But anytime I'm working with something that is a glass bottle or bubble or glasses, I love to cover it with crystal lacquer from Hero Arts, or glossy accents would work as well. There's also a Nuvo crystal drop product that'll work, but I did use crystal lacquer today and I let it set overnight and it worked so amazing. It gives that bottle that realistic feel. So you can see that I went ahead and die cut everything off camera now. And then I'm going to start adding some detail and stamping our sentiments. So for most of my images today, I am going to take a white pen and add a little detail. I think everything but for the shark card. So for the mermaid, I really went all out and added lots of little white dots to her mermaid tail, her fins, all of that stuff, the fish. I'm using a Signo Uniball pen to add that detail. And then we can start stamping and embossing our sentiments and putting it all together. Another thing, and the reason I did all my backgrounds early on, is I knew I would want to stamp and emboss with white on the background. When using Distress Oxide ink, it does take a little bit to dry. I personally prefer letting it air dry over trying to dry it with a heat gun, though if you're in a time crunch, you definitely can. But my preference is to let it air dry. And so by the time I had done the backgrounds, let them dry, stamped all the images, die cut them, my backgrounds were completely dry, and I was able to stamp and emboss and not worry that the embossing powder is going to stick to anything that I've stamped or ink blended on the background. I have figured out my placement for all of my sentiments. I'm going to stamp my greeting, sending mermaid wishes, down in the lower right corner of this card. It kind of naturally has a great little area right here. I'm going to sprinkle on my white embossing powder. I am using the embossing and watermark ink from Hero Arts. I absolutely love this for embossing. And then we will heat emboss this with our heat tool. The white is really going to pop on each of our backgrounds today. And it kind of helps tie in to the white of the outline of our stamped image. Now I did trim down my background to 4 by 5 1/4. I will do this for all 3 backgrounds today. I like that white border. Once you place this background on your white card base, it does help tie into the white border around your images, our white embossing, and all of that good stuff. Just an instant little frame for our scenes. I did decide I think I need some more fish up at the top, since I chose not to put the other 2 yellow fish on this particular card design. So once I figure out my placement, I will stamp that school of fish using VersaFine Onyx Black ink. We're going to pop up our mermaid image with foam adhesive. Everything I'm adding to my cards today, I think with the exception of the starfish, I am adding with foam adhesive, so it pops off of that background. I also want to buff away any remaining powder from my background that I placed on there before stamping and embossing my greeting. And look at that scene, you guys. I absolutely love when it all comes together like that. Some bubbles coming up from our fish and mermaid, and then that crystal lacquer I'm going to place right on the bubbles and allow that to completely dry. I'm going to add a few more white dot detail. I noticed I forgot her fin, and I really feel like it needs a little bit more detail. And then we are going to place this on a white top fold card base. Inside of the card, I am going to stamp Happy Birthday from the JAWSOME Sharks set. So really mixing and matching amongst all of the add-ons for my cards today. So pretty. I absolutely love how this turned out. I am just going to use an acrylic block to stamp this. I'm living on the edge, guys. I kind of forgot to do it before I applied the crystal lacquer, and so I'm being careful. And also before I placed the panel on the front of my card. So I just used an acrylic block with the VersaFine Onyx Black ink. It worked perfectly, and I'm going to set this card aside to completely dry. Just make sure and clean my stamp off, trying to keep my mess to a minimum. And I love it. So, so pretty. Now I want to create a coordinating envelope to go with this card. So as I'm getting to the point where I'm finishing up each card, I decided to finish the envelope at the same time. I have this envelope from Simon Says Stamp. I'm going to go ahead and take like all of this fossil or I don't know, image from our Mermaid Cove. Sorry, I couldn't remember the name of it. I had to look it up. Stamp set, and we're going to stamp that and a couple of mermaids as well as some fish on our envelope to create a very quick coordinating envelope. All of my envelopes are super quick today, but they each perfectly match the cards, so they're not all going to be the same. If you were going to create all of your cards and envelopes more the same, it would go a little bit quicker, but I wanted to show lots of different ideas with all of the different add-ons. I'm using Lucky Clover ink, so very tone on tone. I didn't want to do black because more than likely I will write in the handwrite the address in black, so it really shows up. And I liked the tone on tone here as I felt it just kind of blended into the background. Let's go ahead and trim down our dark sea bold print background to 4 by 5 1/4, and we're going to basically do the same thing. We're going to stamp and emboss our sentiment and then add all of our images with foam adhesive. I'm prepping the bottom right corner. That just kind of naturally was where the sentiments worked out best for these first two cards. Stamp and emboss that with the embossing and watermark ink, heat emboss with white embossing powder, and then I'm going to create a little scene kind of helping to frame up our sentiment with the surfboard, seaweed, and starfish. And then one of the sharks is going to kind of be sitting or swimming up atop that. And our other shark will be up towards the top, and we will add the 2 fish in the upper right corner. And all of these images are going to be attached with foam adhesive. Again, I did glue the starfish directly to the background. It's pretty dainty, and I decided I thought that was going to be fine. I love that light area at the top of the panel. It just really does look like light is filtering down into the water. Again, I'm going to take a white top fold card base. I'm going to stamp Happy Birthday inside of my card, and I'm also going to stamp Hope Your Day is Killer using VersaFine Onyx Black ink. I love finishing off the insides of my cards lately with additional greetings. Pop our panel in place. I am going to add some little bubbles with some pretty pink Posh pearls. I did accidentally smear the eye of my fish. To fix it, I took a white pen and kind of went over where the black smeared. Let that dry completely, took a Copic marker and just kind of dabbed the yellow over the white, and then went back with my black pen and fixed the eye detail. I did not want to completely restamp my fish again. I was so mad at myself for putting my hand in it and smearing it, but I wanted to show you guys how I was able to fix that in case it happens to you. After I've got my little gemstones there in place, I'm going to set my card aside, and our shark card is finished. Let's create a quick coordinating envelope. This time I took a white one and took some more of those images from Mermaid Cove and stamped those with prize ribbon ink. For our final card background, we have our great hero, antique hero map. I've trimmed it to 4 by 5 1/4 already. I've picked my sentiment, let your dreams set sail. I thought that matched the image I'm using. I'm going to stamp that in the upper left corner of our card with the embossing and watermark ink. Heat emboss with white embossing powder. It really stands out fantastic against that. We're going to place our message in a bottle, and here you can see I'm figuring out my leaf and things, and I'm going to go ahead and take the crystal lacquer, and it does take quite a bit. I'm just going to squeeze out a bunch of it at a time and just kind of move it around with the tip of my bottle. And then, like I said, I did let this sit and completely dry overnight, you guys. There are a few bubbles in it, and I purposely didn't pop them because I wanted it to look kind of more like that heavy antique glass that sometimes has bubbles in it. So I went ahead and just left it. When it dries, it will dry completely clear, and it is amazing. I'm going to add my little leaf down here. The bottle's still wet at this point, which is totally fine. First I added the leaf, and then I went back and decided we definitely needed the flower. I kept adding to this card. I do want to stamp inside of this card as well. I'm going to pick more sentiments from our message in a bottle set. Good luck on your next chapter. I thought worked really well with this. I thought it worked well with the sentiment on the front of the card as well. And then for our envelope, I'm taking a white envelope and I'm just partially stamping our treasure map. I really thought about what I wanted to do here, and ultimately I decided I wanted to go with the treasure map theme. This is so simple. I'm using the ground espresso to just kind of stamp, like I said, a portion of it. I stamped it twice, leaving plenty of room to handwrite my sentiment. You could also put like a Post-it or something, some sort of masking, and completely stamp the whole front of your envelope if you want to. And then I took my brown blending brush and just gently blended over that to give it a little bit of color, but I'm not going to go near as heavy as I did on the card background, but I love how it turned out. And here I'm just quickly die cutting the flower that I feel like my card needs. And we're going to add that. And it's yellow. We're going to finish this card with our flower and leaves and then 3 little red hearts. I'm going to pop up the flower with some foam adhesive so that it's nice and at the same level as our message in a bottle. Just like that. And yes, at this point, crystal lacquer is still wet. I'm living dangerously. There we go. I love that little mermaid cove. It reminds me of Peter Pan. I don't know. This is where my mind goes when I'm creating. Adding some little white dots to the flower, to the petals, to these leaves down here. And then, of course, adding our 3 little red hearts. Here is a look at all 3 finished card sets. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for these 3 Mermaids, Sharks, and Treasure Map cards featuring Hero Arts June 2022 My Monthly Hero add-ons. The supplies I use to create my cards are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to my Patreon members. If you would like to become a member of Patreon, please click the link in the description below. We would love to have you over there as part of our community. Here is another video featuring Hero Arts products that you might be interested in. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel, hit that like button, and don't forget to click the notification bell to always be notified when I have a new card making video. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.